Well, he's back. He's back from his exclusive tour of the Pacific Northwest, the Midwest. Softy, Dave Softy Mahler. He's on KJR in Seattle. He has been a frequent guest of ours, and it's Oregon Washington week. Wilner, why have Softy?
Well, and we're guests of his too. So we gotta get the pulse in Seattle, right? This is Oregon Washington is for my money the best rivalry west of Austin and Norman, and it's to me he's perfect. He was on last year; it was great, and we're gonna see what's going on up in Seattle, see what the expectations are. I want to see how he views the state of the Husky program right now relative to Oregon, the Jedd Fisch situation. There's a lot to talk about with this rivalry always, and I'm not sure there's a better person to kind of represent Washington both with context and with passion than Softy.
And Softy, man of the hour, joining us now. How you doing, man? Welcome back.
You talking to me, by the way?
Yeah.
I'm doing swell. I just got one question. How long do I have to do this for, by the way? I just want to know how long this pain is going to last with you two knuckleheads before I can go on with the rest of my life,
this
for
is the
God's
best
sakes.
part of your day. What are you talking about?
Well, I went on the golf course and froze my you-know-what's off this afternoon. A little bit windy, a little bit rainy, a little cold. So I don't know, man. I think at our age, the recovery time is a lot longer than it was when we were 20 years old, 25 years old, man. So I am freaking wiped out, man. But I'm happy to be here. Glad to see your faces, John and I, the other John, JW. By the way, how do you guys refer to each other? Like when you have guests on the air and somebody says John, how do you know who the hell they're talking about?
Well, we grow up that way. You grow up every time you're in a Starbucks and they call it John out. There's three of us that answer to it, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
We named our children very unusual names, in our household, because I was like, to hell with that. Course correct. How are you feeling, man? Washington football, what is it a mixed bag? Is it up and down?
Yeah.
How's it going?
I think it's pretty easy. It's just about Madison. That's it. I mean, you're an 8-3 football team that probably should be 9-2. And if they're 9-2, I think everything feels totally different, right? I mean, you can justify, I think, losing to the number one team in the country in Ohio State. You probably can justify losing on the road to a now 9-2 Michigan team in their house. I didn't like the way DeMond played in that game. Didn't like the way the offense played in that game, obviously. But I think if you would have told Husky fans that the Monday, Sunday before Thanksgiving, you're going to be 9-2 and the two losses are going to be Michigan and Ohio State, and you're facing Oregon for a chance to maybe sneak into the CFP, I mean, that would have been a freaking grand slam for Jedd Fisch, I think, in year two, right? After everything he's been through, after the way the roster got blown to bits by Kalen DeBoer when he took off for Alabama. So, I mean, to me, I don't want to, really make this hard, guys. It's about one freaking game, one day at Madison, where the Husky offense and Damon Williams, and in some ways, a lot of ways, the coaching staff, to be truthful, just didn't show up. And if they could do that thing over again, maybe if they could do that 3rd and 12 play over again, where Damon fumbled the ball and Wisconsin got the ball at their 7-yard line, we're talking about something totally different. But you guys know as well as I, one game, one play, one drive, one quarter can totally alter a team's season and the context of a year and the buzz around the program, and I think that's what the Wisconsin game did. So 8-3 versus 9-2 is a massive difference, but if you can find a way to win this game on Saturday against the Ducks, you'll give Jedd Fisch his biggest win maybe ever as a coach in college football, certainly his biggest win at Washington, and that all of a sudden then I think, guys, would change a little bit the tenor, if not a lot, the tenor of this season.
When we had you on last year at this time, and that was quite a popular episode, I would add. I think
don't feed his ego. Don't feed his ego.
I still got it, boys.
Nobody watched it.
I still got it. Well, look, I mean, the standards on this show are low to begin with, right? Let's be totally honest with you. So having me on is not really, that's not saying a lot, but it's saying a lot in the context of you two yahoos.
Fair. I think your tone was Washington was so mediocre that, of course, Oregon was going to win. And the Huskies and Husky fans, it was kind of a no-lose situation because everybody expected it to be lopsided. Where do you stand on that, balance this year? Do Washington fans look at this as, you know what, we're not good enough, and so
right.
You know, even if we're close, it's a victory, and it's a no lose situation? Or do you think Husky fans think, you know what, we can and should win this game?
Yeah, I don't think Husky fans think they should win the game. Can they win the game? Absolutely. I mean, I think we've all seen Oregon enough at times this year to know that they've got some weaknesses. They're not a perfect football team, obviously. I also think that Washington's banged up right now, right? I mean, I don't know if you saw the game on Saturday night at the Rose Bowl, but, you know, Jonah Coleman's got a freaking knee brace, you know, the size of Wilner, for God's sakes, on his knee. And I was actually a little bit surprised that Jedd Fisch had him in the game. They're up 34-7 with 12 and a half to go, and he's rubbing it in, going for it on 4th and 1 with a guy who's got a bum knee. So that was a little weird. Denzel Boston's banged up. Jacob Manu is now not going to play next Saturday because he said he would rather play against UCLA because he's from Anaheim and wanted to play in front of family and friends. So maybe your best linebacker and maybe your best defender overall, you could certainly make that argument too, is not going to play. So I think Washington, John, to answer your question, I think is a lot closer to being able to talk about and think about winning this game versus Oregon than they were a year ago. There's no question about that. Damon Williams was getting his first start. Now he's making his 13th start in this game against the Ducks on Saturday. But I do wonder if the injury bug and that is going to maybe kind of widen the field a little bit more than maybe it would have been if everybody was healthy for UW.
Let me ask you about this because, you know, the Jedd Fisch coaching stuff is circulated throughout the season. How much of a distraction has that been? How has that gone over with your listeners and in your world?
In our world, when it comes to UW, it's topic number one. And it's not even really close, right? Like everybody is just kind of waiting to see what Jedd Fisch does. You know, I think Husky fans kind of have a little, you know, kind of scars still, maybe a little PTSD from Kalen when he took off and took a bunch of the roster with him. And for a group of guys on this football team, a lot of them that have followed Jedd Fisch from Arizona to Seattle, the ones that still have some eligibility, what's to say they won't do the same thing and follow him to the next destination, right? Like, I mean, normally in college football, and this is the problem I have with the game right now, and it's why it's so freaking tiresome, for God's sakes, that it's like the 2012 Seahawks, right? If we can go back to the NFL for a second, 2012 Seahawks went 11-5. They had this great year. They pushed Atlanta to the brink in the divisional round, almost made the NFC Championship, went to overtime and lost. But after the game was over, all of us are like, oh, man, this is great. Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Russell Wilson, all these guys are coming back. Look at this team we have next year. Imagine if the 2012 Seahawks were a college football team in 2025 and nobody had any idea if those guys were all going to come back. So, yeah, I mean, John, it's not like dominating the conversation. It is something that is brought up frequently on the radio show. I mean, hell, with John's segment that he does with us every Tuesday, we're talking about Fish Watch every single week, right? At least for maybe a minute or two, or maybe a couple of questions on what's going on with Jedd. So it's probably the number one conversation among Husky fans, his future, where he's going to go, what he's going to do. But it's still not dominating the conversation like it was maybe a month ago. And there's one reason for that, because he lost to Wisconsin, period. End of story. I just don't think he's as attractive a coaching candidate now as he was 4 weeks ago because of that game.
Did you think his comments, was that 2 weeks ago, he was asked about committing to Washington? Did his comments satisfy the outraged folks that are concerned about?
No, dude. Comments from coaches like that and what fans' opinions are and media members' opinions are on things like that, I just think is like politics on election day, right? Like, who's really waiting until election day to decide who they're voting for, right? Like, we all know. Everybody knows. Everybody knows in September. They know in October. They know over the summer. And they probably know now who they're going to vote for in the next presidential election in 3 years from now, right? They're either voting Democrat, or they're voting Republican, or they're doing whatever. So I just don't think that he's in a position, or really any coach is in any position, to really change anybody's mind. I mean, if you think the guy's a vagabond and he's going to take off at the first opportunity, I don't think Jedd Fisch can say or do anything that's going to make you think differently. I mean, look, he could sign an extension and have a $20 million buyout the way Lanning's got. I mean, that would make people think differently, right? If he did something like that. I mean, his buyout is nowhere near what Dan's is in Oregon, but I think that ship, honestly, guys, has kind of sailed for Jedd to be able to convince people that he wants to be here long term. He's had a lot of opportunities to say the things that Dan Lanning has been saying in Oregon, the things that Steve Sarkisian has said at Texas. And then on top of that, we've kind of been through it, guys. I mean, you may not remember this, but the day Steve Sarkisian took off for USC, he came on our morning show on KJR and said he wasn't going anywhere. And then that afternoon, he was gone as the head coach at USC. I mean, Tommy Tuberville, right, with those famous comments back in the day, I think, at Auburn. So I just think, for lack of a better term, most people believe that these coaches are full of crap, and there's nothing they can say that will get them to change their mind about what they think their futures look like. So I think that ship has sailed, man.
Would the fan base react differently to Fisch leaving for UCLA or Florida than it did for Kalen DeBoer going to Alabama? What's the difference?
I don't think so. The difference to me is easy in that I saw the next Don James and Kalen DeBoer, probably naively so, right? To be honest with you, I thought this guy with his personality, he's got kind of that aw shucks type of personality. Yeah. He's a kid from the Dakotas, and he says a lot when he talks to the media. He's kind of a little bit of a goober in some ways. He's a great guy. I mean, you guys have both met Kalen. He's a freaking fantastic dude, one of the best dudes I've ever met. But I thought his personality was perfect for Seattle. Absolutely perfect for the Pacific Northwest and perfect for Seattle. So I saw a guy who I thought could be here for a long time. Jedd Fisch, the day he was hired, we thought he was a short timer.
Yes.
And, I mean, you guys have, Jon Wilner, I know you know this, but Johnny Cans, I don't know if you know this or not, but the day that Jedd got hired, we're doing our show from the press conference at UW, and Troy Dannon's the AD, had just taken over. And Dick Fand and I are sitting there in what they call the recruiting lounge. It's the coach's offices on the west end of the stadium where they're going to have the press conferences, the big windows behind the end zone, blah, blah, blah. And we're sitting on the air and we're just talking about his resume. Like, look at this. Guy's been at 10 stops and how many every years and blah, blah, blah. And, this is kind of part of who he is. It's part of his story and that he moves around a lot. And Dannon overheard that and actually sent one of his minions over to our table to throw us out and have us leave the press conference. And we're doing a live show. So imagine me and Dick going on the air and having to say, all right, guys, we're back here on 93.3 KJRFM 1015. Jedd Fisch's introductory press conference is moments away. We have just been kicked out from the press conference. We will not be able to bring you the press conference live on KJR. So I told Will Gully, who was an associate AD back then, it's like, dude, we can't leave. I mean, this is crazy. So my point is that the day he was hired, I think all of us thought this is possible, that this guy's not going to be here very long because of his resume, right? And I just think he's got Florida written all over him. It's on his face that he wants the job. He loves Steve Spurrier. He wears the visor as an homage to him. He loves the NFL. He's totally into the NFL. If you go back to that same spot where they had the press conference for Jedd when he was hired, it's all been remade. There's NFL logos all over the place. There's ex-Huskies and their faces of NFL draft picks all over the place. Everything he's doing is about the National Football League. So if it's not the NFL, it's Florida. And I think Jedd Fisch is going to spend the rest of his life trying to accomplish one of those two goals.
It's one of the many ways that Washington and Oregon are so different, isn't it?
Yeah.
From the head coach's commitment and tenure, it's remarkable to me. Yet at some level they're tied together, right, with the Big Ten thing. I'm curious what you guys think. We know that Oregon for years now has been all in about football, right? It seems like every facet of the university and the university constituency is focused on winning a national championship. Now, whether the primary reason is to do it for Phil Knight or just people want Oregon to win. Do we sense where is Washington's all-in commitment, especially from what you've seen, Dave? Now, especially now that there's a new athletic director and a new president, both in the last year and a half. Do you feel there's a change? Do you think that Washington is closer to Oregon and we're going to do whatever it takes to win a title?
Yeah. Well, just going back to the comments about Jedd, look, if UW benefits from him while he's here, then great, right? I mean, they benefited from Kalen. The guy was here for 2 years and they did great. Beat Oregon 3 times, second place finisher in the Heisman. You guys know the drill by now. So I'm not here to tell you that Jedd Fisch is not working hard. I think he's working very hard. I think
Yeah.
Jedd Fisch is actually one of the hardest working coaches I've ever seen at Washington. I mean, he is more dialed in with more details and aspects of the program than maybe any other coach I've covered. And that includes Kalen DeBoer, by the way, as well. So I'm not saying he's not working his ass off at Washington. I'm just saying that long term, I think he's got much bigger goals for himself than to be
Sure.
at Washington. And I think UW is kind of a necessary evil for him to accomplish those goals. But as far as the buy-in for UW, look, man, this is just a totally different town than Eugene, Oregon. And no disrespect to the state that John lives in or the city of Eugene. There ain't a lot to do down there besides Oregon Duck football. I mean, you got Blazer basketball. Obviously, you've got some other sports on campus, but this is a major metropolitan hub, very diverse, tons of professional sports. There's a lot of distractions, if you will, that take away from maybe a lot of money and a lot of devotion and commitment that otherwise would go to the University of Washington. So I just don't know if they can ever be on that level because they share those revenue streams with a lot of other different pipelines, the Seahawks, the Mariners, the Kraken. We have a women's hockey team now. We have the Sounders that do very well. The Storm do very well. There's a ton of things to do in this area, and I'm just talking about sports. And then when you throw in everything else, and it's really hard, I think, for UW to say, hey, we're in a college town. We're the big, 100-pound gorilla in town. We're the engine that makes this thing go. And that's just not the case when it comes to sports fans in Seattle. So I think my point is this: more than any other, well, maybe more than Oregon, for example, they really need to win. They really need to give people motivation to jump on the wagon. They really need to inspire people to be a part of this. There is a buttload of money in this town. The problem is the people that spend it sometimes don't spend it on sports. They spend it on other stuff that they think matters, like curing cancer, right? And things like that, obviously. So I just don't know, John, if they'll ever be on that level because of the city that we're in and the market that we're in compared to what's happening down there in Eugene and in Oregon.
These fan bases are rabid. We have seen them go at each other over the years. We've talked
Not to me. They're great to me, man. They're sweethearts to me. We have a great time.
The thin stripe of fans who are delusional.
Yeah.
Speak to that a little bit. What is that about?
Mention the thing that we talked about off air.
So we had a guy last week, Michael Penix, tore his ACL with the Falcons. He's out for the year. It's the 5th time in 8 years that he's had a season-ending injury. It's now the left ACL. He tore his right ACL twice when he was in college at Indiana, which is amazing that the 2 best years of this guy's football life he gave to UW, right? He was healthy at Washington. He was a Warrior at Washington. So just really, really super duper lucky that Husky fans were able to get Michael Penix at his best for a couple of years. But, I had somebody on Twitter, I'll say a guy, because I don't even know if it's a guy. I got no idea who it is or what it is. It could have been a bot for all I know, that responded with some smart ass, Bo Nix meme or whatever. And I just went on social media and, kind of poked the bear a little bit, as I'm, prone to do every now and then. I know that shocks you guys. And just said, look at this. This is just Oregon being on brand. This is what they do. And the cool thing was that a bunch of Oregon fans told the guy to take a hike, right? You're just making us look stupid. You're making us look bad. First of all, Michael Penix owned Oregon. He was 3-0 against the Ducks. And then second of all, him and Bo Nix are very, very close. They're very tight. They respect each other. I actually like Bo Nix a lot. I love what he said after Oregon lost in Seattle, 2 years ago when they came up here, and he kind of rallied the team and just said, hey, we're going to fight and whatever, kind of a Tebow speech. I love that. I love the fact that he played in the bowl game when he didn't have to after losing the Pac-12 championship to UW. So I actually kind of like Bo Nix, to be honest with you. But it was cool to see Oregon fans come out and rip this guy a new one. And for all I know, guys, here's the thing. Honestly, it could have been a freaking Husky fan acting as an Oregon fan, just making Oregon fans look stupid. I have no idea. But I think with social media, my personal theory, and I don't know if you guys agree with this or not, I think that these dipsticks have always existed. Twitter and social media is just showing us where they are. They've always been there. These idiots have always been there, whether at bars or restaurants or hanging out in the mall or, whatever, in your corner office in their cubicle at work. They've always been there. And social media now is kind of letting them have a voice and bringing them to the forefront. So I try not to get as worked up about it as I used to be honest with you. Everyone's human. Every now and then you crack and you fight back on social media. But I don't know, man. To me, John, it's kind of the 0.5% of every fan base, and every fan base has that demographic, in my opinion.
We think that for these two schools with football, that's about what it is. It's pretty small, the lunatic fringe.
It's maybe slightly higher when it comes to UW and Oregon. I mean, I hear from all of them. I mean, honestly, like, that's the difference. I said this when the Mariners played the Blue Jays in the playoffs, that I've never seen a fan base full of keyboard cowards more than I have the Toronto Blue Jays. And they actually made Oregon fans look tame, which was shocking. These people, I mean, they're mobilizing. And they come after you. Even when you're not talking to them, they come after you. They don't use their real names. They don't show you their faces. And these Blue Jay fans actually made me semi-compliment Oregon fans by saying, hey, at least you guys show your faces. At least you guys have the balls and the guts to tell me who you are, because most of them kind of follow me anyway, because we're talking Seahawks and Mariners, and PNW shares a lot of sports together, right, as you guys know. Blue Jay fans are not like that at all. So I was actually kind of glad to see that there is actually a more cowardly fan base out there than the Oregon Ducks, and it exists in Toronto, by the way. It's in a different country, but it's not far from us.
Hey, John, do you hear from Washington fans a lot?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. There's crossover. There are.
Yeah.
And I think these fan bases are always thinking about each other. And I think the Oregon fans for years had this inferiority complex. They looked over at what Washington built. When Kenny Wheaton finally, had the pick, it was this big catharsis. Now I think the Washington fans are looking over, and we talked about this, Wilner, the other day, that, when the tiering came out for this deal, this private equity deal, this private investment deal, and Oregon was in an upper tier.
Yeah.
That didn't go over well with Washington fans, did it, Softy?
No, it really didn't. It doesn't bother me personally as much, because I kind of get it in some ways. I mean, hey, Oregon's had more success over the last 10, 15 years. Their TV ratings are better. If we're talking business, just business with this, private equity company that wants to invest in the Big Ten, then they're just looking at numbers, right? They don't even know what color those numbers are. They don't know what school mascot they're associated to. Show me the numbers. Who gets the ratings? Who brings in the revenue? All that. And, it pains me to say it, but it's been true. I mean, yeah, UW's won 3 out of 4 against Oregon, and that's great. But Oregon's had more recent success than Washington has, and they probably right now deserve a little bit of a bigger piece of the pie. But here's the thing for me, and here's the reason why it doesn't bother me that much. It's still better than what they would have been getting if they had stayed in the old Pac-10, Pac-12 without the LA schools. I mean, John and I, Wilner and I, guys, you got to give yourself different names. I can't keep doing this back and forth. John Wilner, I'm going to call you Fred from now on, okay? So Fred and I are talking about this. And his point is that, well, you may have a better shot to make the playoff if you stayed in the old Pac-10, Pac-12. And I can certainly see that. But I just think from a financial perspective, UW is going to be way better off staying in the Big Ten. Whatever tier they're in, whatever piece of the pie they get, it's going to be bigger and better than anything they would have had if they would have stayed in the old Pac-10, Pac-12. So I don't just hear it from Oregon fans, by the way, about the tier. I hear it from Cougar fans on this side.
I'm sure you do.
That know they can bust my balls about, well, what's it like to be a third-tier program? You should have stayed in the Pac-12 with us. I hear that crap all the time from those people. So it's easy to not worry about A when I got B over here busting my balls at the same time.
Dan Lanning, I know that you were hard on him after he lost to Kalen DeBoer a couple of times. Has he, in your mind, elevated himself to a top-tier coach yet?
I think possibly because of the lack of top-tier coaches in college football. I mean, how many really are there, guys? Honestly, like how many top-tier elite coaches in college football are we really talking about? Is Mike Elko an elite coach? Is Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame really an elite coach? Maybe. I don't know how many there really are left in college football. I mean, I think that there is a serious lack of names right now, not just in college football, but also in the NFL. I mean, who's the next big hot thing in the National Football League? I have no idea, man. I got people talking about Clint Kubiak, who's the Seahawks offensive coordinator, being a head coach one day just because the Seahawks offense is cooking right now. Have you guys spoken to Clint Kubiak? It's unbelievable. He's not a CEO at all. I mean, he's a great coordinator. He's got a great offensive mind, but he's not a leader of a locker room and a commander of men. That's just not his personality at all. So I think we're seeing a serious dearth when it comes to college football and the NFL of big-time candidates. So if we're talking about Dan Lanning now versus the rest of college football, then maybe, right? I mean, probably is. But I still think for him, what's going to happen come New Year's Day? What's going to happen come CFP time? I mean, the last time, John, that we saw Dan Lanning in a big moment, he got fried by Ohio State, got run out of there at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, which was a fabulous moment for me. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I mean, you said a few minutes ago that each fan base is thinking about the other 24/7, and I think there's a lot of truth to that, by the way. I absolutely enjoyed the hell out of watching Oregon get their ass kicked by Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. So I think he's got a lot to prove when it comes to that level of college football. This is a guy that still has not yet played in a national semifinal. He still has not yet played for a national title. And I don't know if you can be truly considered an elite coach until those things start to happen.
Straight from the Department of Backhanded Compliments. That was pretty nice.
Yeah,
work
you like
there.
that, huh? Yeah. I'm here to satisfy all parties, Fred.
Nice work. So I do remember last year you mentioned that, this rivalry has basically got two tiers. The years that Washington is not very good,
right,
it is often lopsided.
Right.
But the years Washington's good, we get some tremendous games.
Yeah.
Do you view that as this being one of those years?
Probably not, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, if I were a betting man and I had no allegiance in this game whatsoever, I'd
What do you
probably
mean
if I were a betting man and had no allegiance, I mean, I do have an allegiance in the game. And I am a betting man. Okay. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right.
I mean, gun to my head, I'm taking the Ducks, right? Gun to my head, I'm taking Oregon to win the game on Saturday. I think in a lot of ways it would probably kind of be, I don't know if you guys agree with this or not. It would be slightly embarrassing, I think, for Oregon to lose this game to Washington because college football seems to be wide open right now and there's a boatload of parity. I mean, is Oregon in no matter what? I don't think they are. I think if they lose the game against UW, there's going to be some nervous energy down there.
Big trouble, yeah.
Right, in Eugene. So this would be a big blow for them to have their, CFP hopes dashed by, let's face it, kind of still a rebuilding Washington football team. I mean, they don't have, a lot of big names on defense. They're shuffling around their offensive line. They got a bunch of injuries. DeMond is still waiting to be considered that big-time Heisman quarterback that a lot of people think he has the talent one day to be. So this would be a really bad time for Dan Lanning to lose a game to Washington. But I just think, again, gun to my head, if you're talking about who should win the game, it should be Oregon. I mean, they got way more experience, guys. They got way more experience on their roster. They have more experience on their coaching staff. They're a much more mature program, than UW is right now. And they really don't have a lot of reasons to lose this game on Saturday besides the emotion. They come in overhyped and they start thinking they can push the Huskies around and just play their C level of football. Then maybe you're going to give UW a shot. There's a couple of things I would do differently if I were Jedd Fisch, which we can talk about in a second. But gun to my head, I'm taking the Ducks on Saturday.
All right, talk about that. What are the things you do differently?
I think you need to unleash DeMond Williams and let the kid play. Stop trying to turn him into Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. I mean, there was on Saturday night, the game at the Rose Bowl, offense really did not get going until DeMond Williams took off on that draw for a touchdown and used his legs. And I just think that there's too many times where Jedd Fisch takes the legs and the weapon of DeMond Williams as an athlete and just parks it and doesn't go to it enough. And I realize it's hard. You don't want to get a guy banged up. We don't want a guy like that taking shots downfield. There's been a lot of games this year where he's taken some unnecessary hits, but I'm more worried about that in week 1 and week 2 than I am in week 14 against Oregon. I mean, this is the most important game left the rest of the way. I got no idea who UW's going to play in a bowl game, and frankly, I don't really care who they play in a bowl game. There is no bowl game that Washington plays that will be as important as this game on Saturday against Oregon. So you're pulling out all the stops if you're Jedd Fisch. You are going to let Damon Williams cook. You're going to tell him, hey, if things are breaking down, there's nowhere to throw the football, you take off and you make something happen and you make some magic downfield, man. You go out there and you have a Heisman moment against the Oregon Ducks on Saturday and you use your athletic ability. There's been too many times this year, guys, where I think Jedd Fisch has been a little bit stubborn and he hasn't done that, and I think it's cost him some games.
All right, so we're gonna let you go here because I'm sure.
Oh
you gotta
yeah,
go
God, that was
gotta,
It was painless, man.
Yeah, you gotta work on your short game, I think here.
Jeez, I gotta work on a lot of my game, man. A lot of my game.
So let's skip ahead real quick.
Okay,
we talked about the game.
Yep.
Next year, let's assume Jedd Fisch is back.
Yep.
What is your over/under win total for the Huskies next year? What do they need to do in year 3 under Fisch for you to be satisfied?
Yeah, I think you're
talking. Let's look ahead.
Yeah, I think you're talking about a CFP team next year. I mean, it's 12 teams. I mean, you should be at minimum when the final game of the year comes around, which is going to be the Oregon game down there next year, obviously, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Washington should go to that game and be alive for the college football playoff, right? I mean, my goal for them when they were in the Pac-10, Pac-12 was the same every November 1st. When November 1st comes around, you're in the mix for the Rose Bowl. No matter what, every single year you're in the Rose Bowl conversation in November. So I think next year you play Oregon in Autzen and you got to be in the college football playoff conversation, which I don't think is a lot to ask. I mean, they would have been in the conversation this year if they had beaten Wisconsin. That's how close they were to being in that conversation. Their non-conference schedule next year, again, is crap. Okay, it's not anything that's going to throw them off, any schedule that they're on. They're getting a lot of guys back. They got a ton of talent coming back at the skill spots, especially if Denzel Boston returns. They're going to have a lot of camaraderie with Damon Williams and his receiving core. Big part of the offensive line is going to return next season. So these guys will play 2 years together. Yep. There's no reason why next year they can't be in the CFP conversation and be a 9-10 win team. Vegas, I think, would put the over-under at 8.5. I'd probably put it at 9.5, to be honest with you, for next year.
Okay, so you hit on something there. The money's great, and you're right. Any school that was in that position would have jumped at the money that was there. But let's go 5-10 years into the future.
Right.
If Washington never gets to the playoff, if Washington, which played for a national championship, which got to the Rose Bowl all the time, is simply left in that second tier, for the foreseeable future.
Right.
Would that change your mind at all?
No, because that means they're not doing the job right, if that's the case. First of all, I'm glad that you brought that up because I saw your little article you did about a week ago or so. Yeah. I didn't click on it because my ADD got in the way, but I read the headline. That's all I had to hear. Was that, the only team that's benefiting from the move to the Big Ten is Oregon, right? You said something along.
It's working for Oregon. It's working for Oregon right now. But Washington, you may never matter. You may never matter. And that's a sad reality.
Never matter how. How would Washington never matter?
Conference championship, never make the playoff. And we sit here where all of a sudden you're stuck with Minnesota and Iowa in that second tier.
See, I know what you're doing. I'm not falling for it, by the way. I can just see you kind of just poking there a little bit, and I'm in a good mood, right? I'm putting up Christmas decorations and all that stuff with the wife. It's the holiday season. I'm in a good mood. But I just don't think that's ever going to happen to Washington because that never happens to Washington unless they go out and totally botch everything and drop the ball like when they hired Tyrone Willingham and had to come out of the Rick Neuheisel situation into Tyrone. So unless they're just totally incompetent at Washington and they hire the wrong people to lead the athletic department, which is certainly possible, they did that. And they can do it again, I guess. But if you're telling me, John, that UW goes a decade without getting to the CFP in the Big Ten, then that's their fault. That's on them. Because I'm not saying they have everything that they need to win a national championship every year, but do they have everything that they need to be consistently a part of the playoff conversation and be in the playoff once every 2.5, 3 years? Abso-freaking-lutely they do. So if they don't do that, that's because they got the wrong people in charge and they're inept. And that's when things like that happen at Washington. When you hire people like Todd Turner and you hire people like Tyrone Willingham, that's when things like that happen. They don't happen when you hire people like Jen Cohen, Chris Peterson, and Kalen DeBoer.
Softy, you're the best.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on.
You know what? I'm proud of myself. You tried to bait me. I didn't take the bait. Didn't take the bait.
Poke the bear a little bit.
Just looking at your face just makes me want to just take the bait.
Bear a little bit.
Just God.
All right. We'll talk to you, my friend. I'll
have
see
a good Thanksgiving. Well, I'll talk to you on Tuesday. Have a great Thanksgiving. And
both
have
you
fun
guys.
At the game.
Yeah, love you guys, and thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right,
we'll see you, man.
There he goes, Wilner.
Guest unlike any other.
Yeah, look, he's got great passion. Passion for his team, and he's got context that few people in that market can have, given how long he's been there and how much he cares. And so,
he can communicate.
Yeah,
both of those, the passion very well, the context very well. He can communicate it all, and he knows just how far to take it, and he knows exactly when he's doing the poking, and he's really good.
But I do wonder, like, if Washington's going to look back, and I'm not saying you do it differently, because I think if the money's there, 99.9% of schools would have jumped at it, and Oregon State, Washington State would have jumped at that.
Yep.
But I do wonder if they'll go, gosh, it was so much better the way that it once was. And when they could compete for a Rose Bowl or a national championship, and we'll see how that unfolds. But big game
that's gonna take a while, right?
Yeah.
What's the time? How much time do you think that really needs to kind of percolate?
I think yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we got to probably wait till 2030 at least.
Yes.
Before rendering judgment.
I was going to say 5 years. I was going to say 5 years of looking at a sample size, because if you go 5 years and it's Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Indiana, if Penn State comes back after making a hire, if there's an Iowa playoff, berth in there, and Washington's still sitting in that second tier alongside Minnesota, Nebraska, and Wisconsin, never having made the playoff, I do think the Husky fans who were really excited, I was at that national championship game where they played Michigan. The Husky fans were so excited to be there, so excited to be playing on the biggest stage in college football. If you can't get back there again, I think you have to wonder, did we make a wrong turn? Did we choose wrong? Yes, of course, you're going to question the hires you make and all that stuff, but you have to question like how the ecosystem changed and the role that Oregon and Washington played in that. The Ducks and the Huskies could have said, we're staying in the Pac-10. We'll take the Apple deal, alternate universe. Who knows how that ends up? But it's one of those sliding doors moments that I think we're going to look back on and we're going to go, gosh, is this better? Did this work out better for UW?
Well, it could be. We'll see. There's no way to know either way. I thought he had a good point with the expectations for Washington. Basically, it seems to me, it feels right, given the machinery there. The Huskies should probably be in the playoff once every 3 years. And that's the difference, Huskies and Ducks. You could argue Oregon's bar for playoff 2 out of every 3 years, and Washington's 1 out of every 3 years. It feels like it encapsulates the difference in where the programs have been and where they are, and all the resources issues. But that to me feels like that's the difference right there. Washington is a 1 and 3 year, and Oregon's a 2 and 3 year.
I actually think
2.5.
I think it's higher at Oregon. I think they expect to make it every year. I think the fans expect to make it. They're a little delusional, but I think if they don't make the playoff this year, I think there's going to be a big disappointment in that fan base. And I think they're looking at 26 and saying they're going to be better. Wilner, it may be delusion, but I think the Oregon fan looks over and goes, we're right on Ohio State's shoulder. We're right on Michigan's shoulder.
No, I get that. I'm not saying I think you're right. That's what fans think, but what's realistic?
Yeah.
To me, I think there's a decent chance they could lose this next weekend. And then they are in given the way things are falling in the other conferences. If Oregon loses on Saturday, they're in real trouble on the playoff front.
A 2-loss Oregon team would not compare favorably. And again, it would depend how they lost. I mean, if they lose in overtime by a field goal, it's a different conversation than a double-digit loss. But a 2-loss Oregon, it does not stand up well against some of the 2-loss teams in the SEC. that's good. You're going to have a problem with your strength of schedule, but really good stuff from Softy. Make sure you hit subscribe to us. We'll be back next week. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thanks very much for all your support out there. Have a happy holiday.